know that I basically wear the same outfit like every day. Like, I only can hope that when people look at my pictures on Facebook, they assume that they were all taken on this one like epic day where I went to movies and then to the mountains. I mean, so I have nothing to contribute to this conversation at all. And when I did speak up and participate, it landed with a thud. I mean, they didn't like my little jokes, they didn't like my little stories, they didn't like my T.S. Eliot impression. I mean, like, nothing worked. It was painful. But they were still so nice to me. I mean, I guess I had, like, I was in the group technically, and so they kept inviting me. And I would hear them the next day, and they would say, oh, we all went out last night, and we had a blast. And I was like, a blast? Is that what that was? I mean, I was sort of shocked. It was just sort of like a different notion of friendship, I think. I mean, they spent time together, and they shared experiences, but there was no sense of connection. You know, it was really strange. But over time, I gradually found my people within the sorority, and there were these really just fantastic girls who I'm friends with to this day, and we ended up getting a group house off campus, and we would come to the meetings and sit in the back and sort of like huddle together for warmth and get through it together. And we all had our own options and interests outside of the sorority, but you had to be really careful because you couldn't be perceived as like ditching the sorority, you know? So, I mean, there were a lot of reasons why that would be a bad idea. The biggest was that they would fine you if you didn't show up for events, and it wasn't cheap. I mean, like missing a meeting could be like $100 or something, which is a lot of money in college. And then the other reason was there was a lot of social pressure, and it was one thing never to have joined a sorority, but to join and quit could be really, really tough on your social life. So we kind of struck this delicate balance where we did kind of just enough to fly under the radar, and everything was fine until the beginning of my senior year. And I think part of it was we just sort of ran out of steam with faking it, but also more and more of the girls started moving to the back of the room with us. And so the really hardcore contingent, which we call Greek Orthodox, they getting more and more panicked. And every meeting, like, it was just getting more and more intense. And one day, the rhetoric just like escalated to this fever pitch. And the girls in the front row started dittoing, just kind of normal, and then it just kind of escalated to like crazy eyes. And then they actually started like turning around to the back of the room, and literally was like this. And my friend was like, I kind of think they're putting a spell on us. And then it all came to a head a week later because it was time for rush, and I had a family emergency, and I really needed to go home. Like, it wasn't borderline. I really needed to go home. So I called them up and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss rush. And they said, that's fine. But they were going to fine me, I think it was like $1,200 or something insane like that. And I was like, I'm not blowing it off. I mean, I really need to go home. And they just wouldn't budge. And I was really being astonished. I was sitting on the phone and staring at a wall. And I just thought, this is not friendship. And I was just done. And when I told my housemates, all but one said this was the final straw for them, and they all quit too. And it went, about as well as you might imagine. I mean, some people were very nice about it, but there were some people who wouldn't speak to us on campus, and there were some people who would like sneer at us like we were evil. It was unbelievable. But the worst part was our one roommate who didn't quit. She stopped speaking to us, and we were astonished, and we did everything to try to reconcile and sit her down and say, this isn't about you, we still love you, we just, it's just a sorority. And she just stopped speaking to us. It was so awkward. And the whole thing just made me feel awful. Like, why couldn't I just stick it out for the rest of the year? I had made all these enemies and lost a friend, and I'd hurt people's feelings because some of them felt like I was rejecting something really important to them, and I thought, well, why couldn't I just stick it out? Like, why did I have to do that? And then one day we came downstairs, and sitting on our mantle was the Sunshine plaque. And we thought, oh my gosh, there must be something going on with that one roommate, maybe like something serious with her family, maybe this explains why she's being so crazy. So we tried to talk to her, and she wouldn't speak to us, she wouldn't tell us what was going on. Until one day we ran into one of our friends who was in the sorority. We still had some friends on the inside. And we asked her to tell us the story, and she said, well, last week at the meeting, they announced that they were giving her the Sunshine plaque because they felt sorry for her having to live in a house so full of anti-sorority energy. And when they gave it to her, apparently the whole room erupted in applause. And she took the Sunshine plaque and held it up over her head and yelled, I'm putting it on the mantle. Like some sort of like final scene in Hoosiers or something. I mean, it was just insane. And I just couldn't believe it. I just remember laughing so hard, and I just couldn't believe that their final like, fuck you, came in the form of the Sunshine plaque. The whole thing was just like, so absurd. And it just kind of like burst the whole bubble, and I was just sort of over it, So for the rest of my time in college, I had, got invited to way fewer parties, and I spent a lot more Friday nights playing, board games with my 4 buddies. But every time I would start to question my decision, I would picture myself at a sorority meeting or at a fraternity party, and I would always have the exact same thought, which is I prefer not to. And for the first time in my life, I was totally happy to be Bartleby. Thank you.